The second he said, I'm not going to make any excuses, he went on for 2 minutes with nothing but excuses for the state of this team. And how they've been better than, there's just so much there.
If a caller to our show named Jim in the car said that, and it wasn't Jim Rooney, if we had elected to let him do that entire spiel, we would have hung up and made fun of everything said in there ruthlessly. That's the brother of the owner of the team.
I liked what Doug Whaley said about this today. His point was, this is a guy that is part of the inner circle. This is someone who's above Tomlin. This is somebody that's either on Zoom calls or in the owner's box with his brother, and and this is me now, he's basically regurgitating family talking points on the organization. Mm-hmm. This is we heard their defense today. Art might give us something that's more appetizing or appealing to fans. He might talk tougher and say more disappointing things and more things that fans want to hear. He won't actually do anything that backs up the criticism he might have of the organization when he talks next week. I think we got internally, the curtain got peeled back here with this interview that Jim Rooney did with Ross Tucker to promote his book. This is how they justify what's happened here lately.
This is how they feel.
They do better than average. Donnie, is that the most offensive part of this for you? Donnie Football is here, Chris, across from me. You too at 412-928-9370. We got a ton today, including Russell Wilson's future with the Steelers, Arthur Smith's future with the Steelers now is set up, what they might be doing in the draft or looking at in the draft, all those things. What offends your football Steelers sensibilities the most from that defense of their recent performance?
That being the admission that the standard now that they preach about and they talk about is just, hey, we're a little bit better than average. The league mean, we're a little bit better. And it just so happens another team in our own division is a little bit better than that league mean, which makes us being better than the league mean even more impressive. And hey, we had playoff games, some of them years ago, some of them almost a decade ago, against Peyton Manning when he had like half an arm. Now that game, I don't really get on Mike Tomlin's team for. I thought they played pretty well in a losing effort, shorthanded. But you go back to 2015, yeah, they lost to Peyton Manning in a playoff game. They get shredded by Brady anytime they play a playoff game. They lost to Mahomes one time in the playoffs. You can throw out those names all you want. Let's not forget the names of Tim Tebow, Blake Bortles, Baker Mayfield when he was with the Browns before they threw him out with the trash and bounced around the league.
I think that comment, too, was really a backhanded shot at Ben.
It definitely was. He named 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks while ignoring the fact that they have a guy who's going to be wearing the gold jacket.
You had Big Ben in those games. You went into a gunfight with a pretty big arm there, a pretty big weapon.
You weren't bringing a knife.
You didn't go in with a squirt gun. You didn't go in with the Duck Hodges. You went in with a dude.
Like even if I thought Ben, and I do think Ben, especially against Mahomes, was not himself, and I always put him a notch below Brady and like the real version of Manning, he was still close enough that you could easily win those games. It wasn't like you were operating at a pronounced, oh my God, they need a miracle disadvantage. Not even close.
Ross is an Ivy League guy. So
he was looking at the camera awkwardly. Did you watch the video? Ross knew he was being fed just one of the all-time lines of BS.
He's not gotten back to me, but
Pony, how many times I failed stats, or I got like a C in stats in college. But even then, I know that was several standard deviations away from the usual amount of BS somebody would spew in an interview. That was mean. I thought he was going to start bringing out the league median. What other statistical terms do you know?
Here's what
you should try the FOIL method, maybe. I always liked working with that.
Yes, let's get into algebra.
He did a little bit of lawyerese. I don't know if Jim has a law background like Art, but he went back to a point in time that makes the organization or the team look better. He went 25 years. Because you can look it up. You can ask Grok on Twitter. You can ask AI. You can just do it yourself. You do 25 years winning percentage. The Patriots are the only team better than the Steelers. So he tried to pick out a period of time, an era in football that makes his organization look better. We're not litigating. We're not putting on trial the last quarter century of Steelers football. We're talking about the last 8 years. And the reason why we don't go back 25 years, first of all, is that the coach for a big chunk of that is now on TV talking about things. He's not here anymore. You want to go back and make it from the day Mike Tomlin got hired? That would be more relevant to me. He didn't do that. The thing about the Ravens blows my mind. Basically saying we get screwed by the NFL or we got it rough because we're in a division with another good team. That tells you probably that behind closed doors for years, Art Rooney seethed privately, and the Steelers are like, man, the Patriots got it made in the shade. They're in a division with the Bills, Dolphins, and Jets. They're piping in basically 5 to 6 wins every year right off the jump in a home playoff game because they get to play those cupcakes, which, by the way...
The Jets beat them a couple times in the playoffs.
By the way, the real rebuttal there is you've been in a division with the Browns.
In the Bengals.
You start 2-0 every year because you've got probably the most wayward, worst-run organization 2 hours down the road from you.
Except you don't always start 2-0 because sometimes you biff one to those guys like they did this year.
Chris, you're a boxing guy. What the hell did that analogy mean?
I'm glad you are allowing me to unpack the portion of this that's really up my alley. He's basically trying to say it's the 1970s. We're in the heavyweight division. All those guys lost to each other because they were all so good. Drop any of those great 70s heavyweights into
Ken Norton,
Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Ernie Shavers, Ron Lyle, George Foreman. Drop any of them in their primes into the late 90s and early 2000s, and Mike Tyson would have been, beat up like a tomato can, is what a lot of people will tell you. Or Jerry Cooney. I could go on and on. Pony, you and Donnie have already kind of covered the hits here. The backhanded stuff at Ben, which is kind of weird, just whatever, just seems like to belie any kind of real understanding of the situation. This is my takeaway. I do think that one of the things in the past, and this only has really curdled and turned in the last couple of years, that people used to tout about really the Rooneys generally, since we're saying Jim Rooney here has to be on some level speaking for what the family and Art believes about this whole thing. I do think people nationally and locally touted how connected they were to the city, that it was like, hey, this is a family from the North Side originally. It's not some out-of-town billionaire. Like a guy I think Shad Khan did not live in Jacksonville. He's a London guy, right? Like he wants to move a team to London. It's somebody who grew up here. It's not an out-of-towner who owns the team. And so there's this connectedness. They understand the public trust that's put in the team. They feel about the team the way a lot of people do. And when I hear comments like this, I think what becomes evident to me is that there really is a massive disconnect between how that family overall, owner on down, all his family, at least all his close family members, hopefully not Danny Rooney, his son. It just seems that there's a massive disconnect between how they look at the team and how they judge its success, and how all the people who give them a lot of money every year to support the team, whether it be through merchandise sales, ticket purchasing, concessions, view and talk about the team. To me, what he's saying there, Jim Rooney to Ross Tucker, is like a rebuke to all the fans or people like us.
He's saying don't bitch and complain about the fact. He said, I don't want to make... He prefaced by saying, look, we need to do better. It's not all on Mike. But then right after he said that, he negated all of that by saying, well, let me lay out for you why it's really not that bad and why we've done well. And the whole point of Donnie is right about what the main takeaway from this should be. They believe as long as they are doing better than half of the league, as long as they are an above average team,
mission accomplished.
That's okay.
Mission accomplished. Yeah,
that
they're wildly
is
out of
okay.
touch. They're wildly out of touch, man.
There's 32 teams. If we're in the top 15, it's fine.